Hi everyone, my name is Heather and I'm the person behind Happy Puppy Truffles. Today I wanted to show you guys how you can take the technique we did a long time ago for box of any size to create a simple bookshelf for the little memo notebooks that we've been making. We had the composition notebook, and then I made some of the classic novel memo books as well, and I'll be doing some more, one more 3-ring binder, spiral bound notebook style kind of for the US, and then I'll be doing some Japanese style notebooks as well. So kind of all part of a little big hurrah for everybody going back to school who are in an area where you do that. We've already been at school in Japan. School starts here in April, so we do have summer vacation now, and we do go back to school in September, but it's not a new year, so that's a little different. But anyways, I wanted to just show you guys this. This is kind of my finished version of a bookshelf, and the books just kind of fit in there, and it's just a simple combination of 2 boxes that fit into one larger box. And I've even made a smaller version here to kind of show you guys where you can use those little tiny books by Dave Brill too. If you wanted to, this was made with a 15 by 15 centimeter paper, so if you wanted to, you could put it into this, and I'll tell you guys the dimensions for that if you want to know those things. But it's all simple math, but I know a lot of people hate math, so I'll give you guys the dimensions straight out, but I hope I can also explain to you guys the idea behind it, because if you get the idea down, you can really make any box, any size, with a square piece of paper. So you might wind up like I did here with a little bit of like a cross of color that shows. In my case with this one, because I used colored paper that was the same color on both sides, you don't see it, but I did have that in there. So just to kind of keep that in mind too. But let me go ahead and show you guys some dimensions and stuff here first. I'll get my whiteboard. My daughter drew all over it in red, and I just can't get all the red off. But let's see here. Like I said, if you're doing something that is with the miniature books like this kind that I've done in the past, then this particular size of bookshelf, you're going to need paper that the dimensions of mine were a length of 4 centimeters and a width of 3 centimeters and a depth of 2.7 centimeters. And that was just the number I used, kind of looking at the size of my book and deciding, you know, how big I wanted it to be. Now, you need 2 of these, and then you also need a bigger box that you can put on the outside, and that's going to be a length again of 4 centimeters, a width of 6, so twice as big, but the other dimensions stay exactly the same. And with my fancy math that I do, you wind up getting about 14.7. I like to kind of round up for the outer box just because then you have a little bit more room to work with, especially when you're doing a stiffer paper. So I wound up just using a 15 centimeter piece of paper. And then for the smaller ones inside, I wound up using paper that was about 12.6 centimeters squared. So you can kind of keep that in mind if this was some kind of a project that you wanted to do and you wanted to make this smaller style of bookshelf, you would need those. And then you just need these dimensions because you measure them out onto the paper when you're making the folds. So I just wanted to share these dimensions with you guys first if you were interested in making the miniature one. I'll have them in the description too, because I'm going to erase everything now. Start talking about the bigger one so that you can fit my printables into the bigger one. But let me get this guy out of the way. I know a lot of you guys say I talk too much. I know I do a little bit, but I'm hoping somewhere in there's a tiny little bit of me gabbering on that tells you something that you didn't already know about some of this stuff. So when the concept behind you doing these boxes is that you're holding your paper like a diamond when you make a box. We fold up this side and we fold this side in. I've made a million boxes. You guys have seen a lot of projects with boxes. That's usually how it works. So you've got this little part here in the middle. That's the bottom part of your box. And once you know that dimension and you know how deep, this is how deep here, 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 and here. And then you need to do that again too so that you can completely fold over the paper. once you know those things, you can then measure everything out and create a box. And the thing is, though, you wind up finding out in the longest possible point, this dimension here, which is, you know, make the center point of a diamond. And if you want to figure out then what the sides of the paper are, basic math tells you a squared plus b squared equals this little guy here, which is c squared. So if you use that math and you know how big c squared is, then you can just divide it by 2 and do the square root, or do that the other way around. And you'll get the dimensions because you want a perfect square. A and b are the same. So that's a kind of a very quick way of explaining how we do this. And I don't want to scare you guys with math, but it is really possible if you just use this really, really simple math equation that you can make a box, like I say, of any size, rectangular or square, with a square sheet of paper. So keep that in mind. And, you know, yeah, use one place where you actually use math in real life, right? I never thought I would find that. So So, to this thing here now, if you're trying to make a bookshelf for my printables here, and I tried to consider, you know, the composition notes and some of the other things that we'll probably be putting in here too. So, it's a little deeper than it needs to be maybe for these kinds of guys, but I was hoping it'd be a good size for everything, so kind of keep that in mind. But the dimensions for this box are, length is 12 centimeters. The width is 8 centimeters, and the depth is 6 centimeters. And you need 2 of these, again, like I said. And then the larger one, the length is 12, the width is 16, and the depth is still 6. And you'll, like I said, you need these numbers because I'll show you guys how we use these when we're measuring out where to fold. So you'll know these dimensions for that. When you do the fancy math that I showed you, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, then you get the dimension that for this larger sheet of paper here, for the smaller one here, it should be 31 centimeters. And for this one here, it should be 36.75 centimeters. So you do need large paper for this, and if you don't happen to have any large paper, you can use your wrapping paper. That works good. Another really great thing that you can use is paper bags from the grocery store, if they still have those. That's always a great sturdy paper, because making a box isn't that complex of origami, so you can use a heavier paper like that and have it still turn out really cool. Plus, they're brown, which is a great color for a bookshelf. So, so yeah, let me go ahead and get my paper cut here. I'm using some super large paper that I have, and I'll get them cut down to these dimensions, and I'll show you guys how to fold everything up. So I have my paper cut here, and you can go ahead and just make sure that you have the center marked. Now I'm first focusing on the smaller boxes that are going to be the inside of my bookshelf, and there'll be 2 of them, so you'll need to make them both exactly the same. But all we're going to do is, looking at this big space and a big diamond shape, again we're going to take our dimensions that I talked about before, and we're going to use those to help measure out the distance for things. So in the first case, 12 by 8 with a depth of 6. So if I just take my ruler, and you have to do a little quick division of something in half, but I'm going to do my length, for example, first. So 12 divided by 2 is 6, so leaving 6 in the middle, I can mark here at 0 and then here at 12. And that's one point where I'm going to fold. And then this part is going to be 8, so I'll put my center point right at 4, and again mark at 0, and then at 8. Now here, from here, we're also going to come out and put the depth measurement, and I told you that was 6 centimeters. I'm going to do it twice because it folds in and over itself, and then you have this little excess that comes into the middle. I'll do the same thing on this side too. And I've mentioned before with this process, if you wanted to fold in half and just try to get both of the creases completed at the same time, you can do that. But I kind of like taking my time and doing it this way. It's just kind of up to you. But we're just going around and we're making both ways, so four different sides, making that depth mark twice. So I'm doing on this side too. And on the one this one where it's on the length, which is longer, there's going to be a little smaller triangle left over at the top, at the end. So I've got all of those marked off, and then I'm just going to fold them in. I'm going to start off with any of these, really is fine, but you just kind of start there and keep your creases lined up and fold them in. And I just like to kind of stick with the same creases first. It's all up to you guys. If you want to stay on one side and fold all of the creases that are on that side, that's fine. I just like trying to keep it simple by first going around and folding the base creases so that I establish the bottom part of my box. Or in this case, the box that'll be the interior of my bookshelf. Just to make sure things don't look weird before I get too far into it. But you can get this guy here. And you get slowly more creases that you can use to help you as you're making stuff here. So I'm just going to keep going around and making these creases. Now I'm just focusing on making them all mountain creases. You can certainly, of course later some of them will need to be valleys, and we can go ahead and fix those later. But I'm just going through and trying to get all of these folded in just to make sure everything's looking good. Stuff should almost line up, but you know, there's a little room for error because of you measuring and the way you might have cut your paper. Things might not come perfectly to the side. Don't worry about that too much. Just focus first on making nice clean creases so that you can go ahead and make the box collapse. Ideally, of course, like I said, on the side here where there's the bigger triangle, that should really come straight down right in half of the area you're working in thereabout. So we get all those pre-creases, and then we're going to just do like when we make a box. We're just taking the shortcut version here. I'm going to fold in big triangle here, take this part that I have and fold it back, and that should give me a nice, now this is the side of my box right here. And I could do the same thing on this side too. So again, I just need to reverse that one flap so that it's a valley crease, and then I can go ahead and fold everything in. So I've got two sides of my box established, and you know, it doesn't really matter which way you're working really on this one, but I do need to put some diagonal creases in, and when you make a regular box those are already there, but in this case I need to make them. So what I like to do is if I just look here on this side edge, I've got this nice little square on this end, and what I want to do is just take this crease that stands up, I'm going to make that come to the outer crease and initially pull up the side of the box. And I hope you guys can see this. Then I make a crease here to create a triangle right in the inside. So I can do the same thing on this other side too. I've got this nice square right here, right next to the triangle, making this crease match up with the outer edge. So you're just creating a diagonal crease that goes right through here. And just by pulling up and letting that side stand straight up, you can line everything up there, you can create a nice crease so that this side will collapse, and you can make the side of our box, just like you do any other box. We can get a nice crisp finish there. So I can do the same thing on this side again. I'm just pinching and making a new diagonal crease here for everything. Make sure you give enough room for everything, of course. And then I can collapse this side too. And this should give me one of the interior boxes for my bookshelf. And it looks like I'm pretty lucky. I don't have a whole lot of white showing, so that's nice. And if you want to, you can glue these flaps down if it makes things look and feel a little better. Since this is something where we're going to probably want everything to kind of look nice, I can go ahead and put just a little bit of glue on these tabs so that everything kind of comes together nicely here. And I just like to kind of take things apart when I do it a little bit here. But that's kind of up to you guys how you do stuff. But I'm just going to get it glued down. Just need a little glue on all of those tips. And there's a little tiny bit of white showing, but if you get your edges lined up nice, it can actually look kind of like a cool little mark in the inside of your box. hopefully, if you kind of line things up right. So basically you do the exact same steps for the other interior box, and you also want to take your outer box, which is that like slightly larger piece of paper, and again in this case my dimensions are just going to be slight bit different, 12 and 16 and then 6. So same process though of finding the center and marking everything off so that you can make all the parts for this, and then we put it all together in the end. So I'm going to make the rest of these boxes and then I'll show you guys how to put it all together. So when you're finished, you have the two boxes and then the larger outer box, and you can just slide all of them together. And it can be a little tricky sometimes if you made things almost a little too exact, that stuff might feel a little bulgy or weird at some points. You probably want to try to go ahead and go in and glue some of these sides together and try to really squish it down in there good and get the edges good. Especially with this large size paper, I have a little bit more room to kind of play around with it. If you use a little bit of glue on each of these edges and you leave it some time to connect, you should be able to get a pretty good, nice finish on things here. I don't need a lot on the whole thing, I just need it on that top of the edge if I can get it there. I can get this side too. If the interior bugs you, you can of course put another layer of paper as a backing in there so that you can finish things off, or you can go ahead and just kind of leave it the way it is. If you're going to be filling it full of books, you won't see so much of that difference there probably, but you can kind of see how you get a good nice little finished bookshelf from those 3 boxes that we put inside there. And then if you use some of the downloadables that I have on my website, you can put them in here and create your very own little library of books. I would recommend using a slightly good weight paper. You don't want to use tissue paper obviously because it's not going to hold up for any books to be inside, but have some fun with some different kinds of styles of paper. I use some handmade paper for this, and I'm a little worried that if I put too many on here with the weight, it might cause this to kind of dip down a little. So you want to kind of keep that in mind. You want to use some good strong paper. So paper you use for making, for crafting, for scrapbooking, all those kinds of things are good. So, but that's sort of a way to put together everything to make your own bookcase. I'll have some more fun things to share with you guys in the days to come. Thanks again always so much for watching, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye!